A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGeek webinar series. The topic for today's session is Windows 8 app design and process lifetime management. And we have with us today Samiksha Khare. She is the technology evangelist, DPE, Microsoft India. Samiksha's core technologies are Windows 8 and Windows Phone 8 app development. In her current role, she helps developers with Windows app development. Samiksha will be taking us through her presentation for the first 40-45 minutes, and we will open up the last 15-20 odd minutes for a quick round of Q&A. Request all the attendees today to start sharing questions with me from 5:30 p.m. onwards. And also, if there is any issue in terms of connection or audio, please feel free to inform me right away. So without any further delay, I will now hand over the session to Samiksha. Samiksha, over to you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Samiksha.
Great, let me share my screen quickly. Okay.
Yes, I can see your screen now.
All right. Hello, everybody. Good evening to all of you. My name is Samiksha Khare, and I am a technical evangelist with Microsoft working on Windows 8 and Windows Phone 8. Today's session will be about app design, how you can design your app for various screens and various form factors, and process lifetime management. So let's take this forward. The agenda for today's session will be, we'll start with talking about information architectures, followed by prototype readiness. We'll talk about how and see some examples about how they have included multitasking models and leveraged Windows 8 and 8.1 platform for that. We'll see how you can create beautiful apps at any sizes and any screens. After that, we'll start with process lifetime management. We'll see then how Windows 8 application runs. Then after that, we'll talk about splash screen, background tasks, RTC apps, and finish up with live tiles. So before moving forward, I want to mention about design templates, which are available at aka.ms/Winate templates. You can check them out. There are 75 design reference template. Why I'm showing them to you is if we have some of people who have never started a Windows 8 application development till now, you can jumpstart the development by downloading these reference template which are present in this URL link. These templates are for across all the 20 categories in the store. These are basically Visual Studio projects which are of high quality and store compliant. So please feel free to look into them. Also, I'd like to mention about Windows Store App Labs, which is a physical entity set up in Bangalore. And if you are somebody who's developing Windows 8 application, or if you are somebody who's going to start developing Windows 8 application, this email address w8pitcrew@microsoft.com should be your friend for as long as you're developing Windows 8 applications. Why am I saying this? Is because any kind of difficulty, any kind of help that you need in development of your app, you can write your queries and take some suggestions from the App Labs. Feel free to get any of the technical support, any design support. If you need to get your app tested across all form factor, if you want to get a quality review on your application, Windows 8 App Labs is the place to go. w8pitcrew@microsoft.com is the friend you need. So here's how we're going to start the session now. The first thing on the agenda was information architecture. Now, on the screen right now, I am trying to show you the cycle, which is the recommended sequence of the steps basically. It's just recommended. You can have your own choice in that. So the first thing that what you need when you begin developing a Windows 8 application is a great idea or a small idea, because we cannot judge an idea. We do not know which of the ideas will become a very hit idea. So have faith, think some time about deciding on an idea, commit to it, and then move forward. The important part over the first step is that you be clear on your idea. Followed by this is architecture and design. This is where information architecture is going to play a very important role. In the second role, after you have figured out what your idea is, now is the time where you have to sit back and think about how your information is going to flow for a user. What all navigations are you going to provide for your application? How many pages are going to be there for your application? Which page should discuss which part of information, which information is relevant to show, and how you're going to place the information to get the maximum user attention and helping the user to gain the knowledge. Third step is creative design, where you have to actually design your application, choose your color combination, choose the placement of controls, etc. Over here, you can take help of design template, like I mentioned on the previous slides, aka.ms/unittemplates.com. If you use those templates, it's not mandatory that you do, but if you do use the templates, your development will get a jump start, because then you don't have to waste your time actually fixing the control. You can just download the project, tweak it a little, shape it a little as your imagination, and then you're good to go. Fourth step is development testing and the store readiness. Over here on the fourth step, you can leverage Windows Store App Labs and take all the kind of supports that you need. Do not hesitate to write any of the queries that you have, small, big, silly, very important. Leverage Windows 8 Store Labs. We are here. They are there to help you. And then finally, put your application for store certification, and boom, you have your application on the store. So basically, yes. So information architecture plays a very important role at the starting. When you are done with the app idea brainstorming. Dictionary defines definition of information article is a bit complex, which is on the screen, which says that it's a specialized skill set that interprets information and expresses distinction between science and systems of science. Well, to say it on a simpler forms, what it means is you have a bulk of information which you want to get across to the user through your apps. Now you have to, basically you cannot put all the information up front, can you? You have to categorize that information, you have to give a structure to that information, you have to give layers to that information, you have to decide which information is important, which information needs to be delivered up front at the start, which information can wait on and go on to the next level of navigation, and you have to decide what is your target audience and which information they can understand quickly. Brainstorming about all this forms a part of information architecture. So let's take an example. Let's say you have an application which is a travel application or a news application or a cookbook applications. So if you have a news application, how will you want to show that application? Do you want to go ahead and write a headline and the detailed article, everything on the first page, and let user navigate, go on, and then he has to go through all the whole of the article to get to an article he reads? Or do you think it makes more sense that you categorize this whole bulk of news articles into categories such as, relevant categories like business, technology, leadership, politics, etc. And after that, you feel like under each of these headings or categories, you want to again give categories, or do you want to display the news article? What do you think will be the best way? Well, it is, according to me, I think if you categorize these information properly, you're giving user a fast navigation. You are giving user a feel that he has a lot of content at his disposal. You're actually saving users time by giving a clean and a neat navigation from one category to one headline to one article. So this forms a very important information architecture. What is required of you is to sit back with your idea and decide the information flow for your application and how you're going to place that application for the maximum user benefit. On the screen right now, if you can see, there's a hub page, section page, and a detail page. So this is an app called Burp, which has designed that app beautifully. If you can see a little bit, they have a categorization in terms of restaurants, nightlife, shopping, and beauty. And if you scroll a little bit, there's health, which is the level 1. After that, there's another level, which is the sections. So if you click any of the categories above, you can come down to the sections and then scroll horizontally, horizontal panning, and search for what you're looking for, and then come down to the details. And then under details, you have a lot of cuisines. Like in this case, they have chosen restaurants. Then in restaurants, they've chosen cuisines. And in cuisines, they've chosen Chinese. And the Chinese displays all the restaurants in available data. So this is a good example of how information architecture is at place, how it is built keeping in mind what user is looking for. It is built keeping in mind how to give a better user experience by properly structuring and categorizing their data, and finally lending into the details page, which is what user is looking for. So if you have any of these ideas in your mind, if you are sitting with the app idea right now, for people who have already are developing Windows 8 applications or in the middle of it, still is the time. If you think you need to take some time off to figure out the information architecture, it's cool. For people who will be just starting Windows 8 application probably after this session or later on, you should think about how flow of information and the navigation of information plays major role in your app development. Now this screen has another sort of information flow where on the sections page they're giving a drop down menu, which is actually it's the same flow but they're showing it in more detail. You can either follow from hub to section to details page directly. You can go from hub to the sections and then again go to sections, change it if you want, change your choices, and land into the details page. So the flow of information is totally a developer's call, totally an app developer's call, how you want to place the information. But it's a good idea to always keep yourself into the shoes of the user and understand their requirements. So that was about information architecture. Let's see how apps at any size and any screen can be built beautifully. Well, these days it's amazing to see the different form factors which are available in the world. Starting from the phones, well, we'll not talk about the phone actually, starting from the phablet, which is in between phone and a tablet, and then tablet, and then there are laptops and desktops and big screens and the boardroom screens which are very, very big. So many form factors. The curious part is all these form factors are well adapted by people around the world according to their choice of the devices. So these days there are lot many screens. We've never seen so many screens before. These days we have so many screens and people with so many choices that we should keep in mind that we have to cater to all these people who are using different form factors of devices. So your app for Windows 8 or 8.1 will appear, if you take in your mind that there are so many form factors, your app should appear beautiful and well crafted at all sizes. The best part is you should take advantage of the multitasking model which is there on all the screens and form factors. What I mean by this is, I think one of my personal thing is that how Windows 8 and 8.1 collaborates with the hardware which is of highest resolutions available these days and help us do multitasking. Like if there are big form factors, you can go ahead and open up like three applications or four applications. You can open at least 2 applications in Windows 8. So all of this is available due to this beautiful mixture of Windows 8.1 and 8 operating system and the hardware devices. So on the screen right now, you can see 3 applications open. And all of these 3 applications allow me to multitask. So there are 2 modern applications running side by side with a fully functional desktop application. We should understand that it's time that we give user the chance to multitask by crafting our applications in a way, keeping in mind that he is going to open our applications in a different mode. Different mode meaning different sizes, not just the full sizes, but split sizes as well. We'll take a deeper look into it in the next slides. So you can open 3 applications. If you have a bigger resolution device, you can open 4 applications. So on this screen, on this slide right now, there are 4 applications, 4 modern applications running with a fully functional desktop. So let's say some of you are in the office and there is some cricket match going on, and you want to keep a track of the score, as well as you want to see what people are writing about it or what people are saying about it, and you want to say and talk about the match going on Facebook or Twitter, or you want to blog about it. Plus you want to keep a tab on the team which is playing. Also you would want to keep some work related application open because what if your boss pops in. So at this moment I've seen in my office sometimes that if the huge match is going on, or a soccer World Cup is going on, or tennis going on, people are working on one desktop and playing and watching the World Cup on the another desktop. Well, some productivity, I guess. But the point here is, open a lot of applications in one screen. So what goes behind looking at such screen filled with so many applications are well-crafted, neatly made applications which can take the space available on the screen according to the sizes. They can increase or decrease their content, place their content such that even when the applications are resized, they don't appear shabby, they appear clean and very, very user-friendly. Wow, look at this. Big form factor devices with the small form factor devices, which has got 4 applications open at once and 2 applications open at once. So in Windows 8, we had defined 4 states actually: snap view, fill view, full view, and portrait view. This was what was defined in Windows 8. So full view was when your application is taking the full screen of your device. Snap view was when your application was taking 320 pixel of your device. Fill view was just the contrary of snap view. And portrait view was when the height of the device, when you rotated your device, and height of the device is more than the breadth of the device. But in Windows 8.1, we have reduced the, we have like totally forgotten all these naming syndromes, all these name giving to the views or view states, and all how we define the splitting of the application is through the size of the screen. Now, as you can see, the purple part is 500 pixel. So this is the minimum that you should design in your applications if you are making a Windows 8.1 application, or you can design a larger application, or you can go and design even larger application, or you can go and design even larger application, and the remaining is 320. 320 pixel or the snap view, it is no more mandatory to implement the snap view to get the store certification. So it totally depends on the context of your application and the choice of experience you want to give to the user, and then only you should decide whether you want to implement the snap view or not. But it is absolutely important that we implement a fully functional 500 pixel view of your application, which is actually a 50% view of the screen, a small screen, and in the larger screen it might appear that it's little bit on the right hand side, as in right or the left hand side. So these days, so this is how Windows 8 and 8.1 differ when it comes to sharing the screen or when it comes to using the multitasking model. So actually, I cannot emphasize more on the fact that these days multitasking is really very, very powerful, and all we can do or how we can make it possible if we consciously develop our application to support multitasking. If you do that, it will be easier for people to launch the applications, because let's say you are in mail application, alright, and there is a link or a PDF document which is attached to an email which you just received. If you open the link and it opens into a web browser, Internet Explorer 9 or 10, and it opens, if any one of you who's already working on Windows 8.1, you'd know that as soon as you click on the link or open the PDF, the screen splits into 2 parts, 500 pixel each, and the other application, that is browser or the PDF reader in our case, opens up into the half or the 500 pixel part of your application, and it is such a beautiful user experience where I don't even have to come out of my mailbox to view what the content which is there in my email, whether it is a link to the next World Cup or it is a PDF document saying or PDF document containing tickets to my home. Whatever the document or the link is, It's beautiful how you click on it and the screen divides into two, and you can view the content right there without coming out of the application or without losing the context of the application you are on. This emphasizes the power of multitasking, where your application is giving chance to user to leverage other applications for a seamless user experience. So it's important that we craft our application such that it supports all window sizes, if not all, few of the basic sizes like 500 pixel. So let's start with saying, what does it take? Okay, how should we think about it? So in the next few slides, we'll try to understand how to go about splitting your applications, or what to keep in mind when you're designing to leverage the multitasking model. So if you're designing an application for 8.1 and for 500 pixel wide screen, it's recommended that you always use the full functionality because this resizing is very natural. Like I gave an example of a mail application where you're opening a link or where you're opening a PDF document, and it splits the screen automatically, and very naturally user is transferred from one application to another application. So it's basically not a disruptive approach. It's a very natural resize of the applications, and the 500 pixel is very basic. And so it's always recommended that you have the full functionality included into it, whether your application is horizontal painting, whether your application has got columns, whether your application is a game. 500 pixel wide should always have full functionality. Now, as you increase the size from 500 pixel wide and up, you see that the layout is adapted to fill the spaces. As you go on up and up, your application, if it's horizontal panning, will keep on increasing and giving good data to user. Now, since I told you this is a very natural experience for user, let's see in future few examples of this. But before that, let's try to understand what goes on the development side. So in Windows 8, can you see over there the visual state and visual group? This is what we use to develop the views or the view states in Windows 8. We used visual state and we named it as the primary layout. And this went on the C# code behind the XAML or the C#, where we are using application view.value, application view state filled. Now what happens in Windows 8.1? Like I mentioned previously, that the whole concept of view state has gone. Now everything happens in terms of the property called e.size.width. So the size is what matters. This is how you can set up the size, e.size.width, and define what width you are exposing, and hence give the layout, whether it's a primary layout or it's a narrow layout. Similarly in CSS, before you used to use MS view state filled, which is what you use in Windows 8. But since view state is all gone now, what you do in Windows 8.1 is you use a min width, which is 500 pixel, which can change according to the requirement of your application. Now here's an example designed for 500 pixel and up. If you have to adapt to a horizontal space, or you have an application which is horizontal painting, and you have given a 500 pixel cut of the screen to this application, it should remain as it is. It should cover the screen completely, and you should give user the proper horizontal painting or the proper horizontal scrolling experience. Similarly, is there another scenario where you have to adapt to horizontal space and the app style is a multi-column app? So on the screen, if you can see, there are 3 columns. There's a Gmail, and under that there is a lot of folders. Then there is a title of the email, and then after that is another column which displays the detailed email. Now when you try to sort of decrease the screen size given to this application and bring it to 500 pixel or keep on increasing it, what is a good practice over here, which is implemented by the mail application, is you cut down on the number of columns. Like over here, they have completely taken off the leftmost column which is showing the folders, and what is shown on the 500 pixel is the column which is containing the headline or the title of the email and the detailed email. So it depends on you. If you have a application which is implementing columns a lot, this is one approach which you can take. Also, let's say you have an application which has got 3 or 4 columns, each of 200 pixels. So basically how much size is this application going to take at one time? Screen size is 600 pixels, right? And you don't want to give a user an experience which is less than 600 pixels, because you feel that the whole of these 3 columns are required for a proper display of the content and proper user experience. So what you can do is you can define it as e.size.width property that I told you before, which is fix it as less than 6% or greater than 6%. The point here is, while I say that the 500 pixel is what you should implement with full functionality, and you think that 600 pixel is what is required for you to give the full functionality, you can go ahead and implement that. So whatever the sizes are there, how it maps to your content, how is it that you're going to implement or take advantage of those sizes for your application is call that you have to make and leverage this. Once you decide that this is what is the size you need, go ahead and implement that. So also in CSS, the same thing, the 600 pixel can be implemented with using 599 pixel max width, and the whole application layout changes happens according to these. So design for 500 pixel and up, here is another scenario where app style is fixed aspect ratio, which are basically games. So over here, you would want the whole of the game to shrink and grow according to a fixed aspect ratio to give a good user experience. Because if you hide it from any of the sides, it won't give the same impact as it would if it was on a full screen. So this is what you can do. You can actually shrink it. Screen or the layout changes from 500 pixel to bigger, bigger, bigger and smaller. Now, adapt to, this is a different scenario which says about adaptation to the vertical space. Here's what you can do. If you have something like this, where you have to where you're trying to adapt to the vertical space, you can change a little bit depending on the content, how you're making user view your application. What you can do is, if your app, probably you can use a grid view or a list view, which controls the reflow, which controls the, these controls help in reflow of the content very easily. Like if there's a list view, or the application is like a news application or a feed application, or you're giving weather and it is listed down one after another. So, and if your application in the vertical space, you can add data on at below of it. So or what you can do, another thing that you can do over here is make the content larger or smaller according to how the content is to be viewed. Whether it's in, or is it in the image format, whatever format your content is in, you can resize them a little, make it larger or smaller. You can use additional content, or you can use list view or grid view for the proper content reflow. These are some of the tips that you can use if you're adapting your application for a vertical space. Like over here on the screen, let's wait for it. Yes, now that the screen is visible. So over here on the screen there's a travel app, and as you can see, the one which is on the background, there are 3 rows defined, and one on the foreground has got like 5 rows defined. This is what I meant when I said that you can have additional content, or you can resize. And the point here is make the best of all the layouts which are available, whether it is horizontal or vertical spaces. And for that, do whatever needs to be done to give a very good user experience. Whether it means having a row controller or grid view controller, or is it meaning that you have to append additional content on the screen, or it means to resize your images or the tiles. I hope it's making sense for you till now. So moving on, let's talk about how you can design 500 pixel and up and optional support down to 320 pixel. Like I mentioned before, now to get your application certified for store, you do not need to implement the snap view, but you can, it's an optional choice. If you think that there's a relevant content that you would like to display, probably content like scores, content like feeds from Twitter, which will be easily readable from the 320 pixel, feeds like weather. All of these kind of applications can take advantage of 320 pixel, but it's an optional 320 pixel. Now for that, the valuable scenarios could be when you're using a list or the inbox. Yeah, I forgot to mention inbox. So if you have mail sort of an application, or the feed or the status sort of an applications, or listing sort of an application, this is what you can do, implement the optional 320 pixel. But you have to make sure that if you are using the 320 pixel and taking advantage of this layout, make sure that the functionality, the core functionality of your application remains. It shouldn't be that you're trying to leverage another layout of Windows 8, 8.1 and sort of compromising on the functionality, or sort of compromising on the presentation or the quality of information that you're trying to display or convey to the user through your application. So as long as you are clear with what are the core scenarios of your applications which needs to be implemented in the 320 pixel optional layout, and that you're not compromising with the kind of experience and the kind of content that you're giving to the user, you're more than welcome to support down to 320 pixel. Now, since you're giving optional support down to 320 pixel, all you've got to do is override the default minimum width which is there in the app manifest folder of your Visual Studio project. So go down to, let's say you've decided that you want to give the 320 pixel support, the optional 320 pixel support to your application. What you got to do is go to your Visual Studio project and the app manifest. Over there is an option of what is your default, what is your minimum width. You can start with selecting 320 pixel over there. Then you can do the, you can take advantage of the Windows 8 Snap View if you already have a Windows 8 application. You can change it a little bit according to what you want to show, and then go ahead with implementing 320 pixel. Now, as there was a try unsnap, which was there on Windows 8, there's no programmatic unsnap in Windows 8.1. So you have to make a clear decision what you want to do with a 320 pixel or the narrow size of the Windows screen layout. So if you have a Windows 8 application which is running on Windows 8.1, it will run nicely. It will be running in the compact mode. So any application can be any size from 320 pixel to up to 500 pixel, anything more up than 320 pixel. And the app is fixed with 320 pixel, will be running in a pillar boxing. So like on the right hand side, you can see a Twitter application which is actually taking a 320 pixel space. But can you see the black area around the application? That's called pillar boxing. We do that so that we can run the Windows 8 applications which are not yet targeting Windows 8, which is yet not targeting Windows 8.1. but are still available, they'll run in a pillar boxing. Now, when this same application, Windows 8 application, which is running on Windows 8.1, but which is yet not targeted Windows 8.1, when you want to target it to 8.1, you will have to do some work. You will have to make some changes in the code, and at this point of time, no pillar boxing of the applications will be there. The whole application will fill the whole area will be filled by the application. Does this make sense? So if you have 8 applications running on 8.1, which is yet not targeted 8.1, pillar boxing will be used to run those applications. And for the application, once they target 8.1, no pillar boxing will be there, and the whole application will fill the window. Again, in Windows 8 8.1, visual states are used and primary layouts are mentioned, primary layouts and narrow layouts. And what you use is application view.value and application view state.snap. People who are already developed Windows 8 applications, they must be aware of all of this. But in Windows 8.1, what you do is, again, use a property called e.size.width, and according to this size, you have to define whether you are going to go for narrow layout or primary layout. So the thing remains same, but in Windows 8, like on the screen right now, you use application view state, and Windows 8.1, like on the screen right now, you use e.size.width, and anything which is less than 500 uses narrow layout, or if not, then use the primary layout. Same thing if it is a CSS code. In Windows 8, what you used was a view state, whether it was snapped or not, or fill or what. And in Windows 8.1, what you use is the width, 499 pixel above or 499 pixel below. So this was the part of, so this is what I meant. Now moving on, let's see. Designed for 500 pixel and up, optional support down to 320 pixel, craft control for any sizes. So let's say you have controls for your application and you're resizing your application. So the application framework automatically compresses all of these app bar or the navigation button, removes the text from below it, and reduces the sizes. So it's important not just to implement the layouts, different layouts, but also to cater to the neatness of your design, to the neatness of the whole of your applications, and resizing of control forms a major part of it, because that's what needs major work. So on the screen you can see the above layer. It's on a larger screen, which is 1366 pixel, and below it is on a smaller layout, which is the 500 pixel, and you can see the difference in the control, right? Over at the top, these are bigger, the sizes are bigger. There are fonts available or the text available below the buttons, but on the smaller one, they are not. So you have to decide what you want to resize and what not. Let's take an example right now. On the screen right now, can you see the alarm application? This is the view of the alarm application. It's a fantastic application, very, very nice. So on the top left, you can see alarm, timer, and stopwatch. Right on the top left, there's alarm, timer, and stopwatch. These are basically the 3 navigations which are there on this application. So I've highlighted those 3 for you. So alarm, timer, and stopwatch. What if you're trying to resize this application now? So let's say this is what your application has become, and still you have to provide the 3 navigation: alarm, stopwatch, and timer. So here's what they have done. They have given a drop-down menu, and this is how they are redefining the control. Now again, when you have resized it to 320 pixel, what they have done is, from horizontal painting, they have gone into vertical painting. So this is what resizing of your application or resizing of your control means. Craft your control nicely and make the best of these multitasking model. So here's another example on the screen. This is the search example for the Bing search, which is improved a lot. And if you've not yet searched anything in Bing, please go ahead and do that and be impressed by it, because it's beautiful. So on the screen right now, we have a Bing search result for Marilyn Monroe. And it's basically a lot of panels with essentially data or information given in the vertical form. Now when you resize it, what happens is, all of these panels go into a vertical scrolling or the vertical panel. So that's what it is. Now what about portraits? So like I mentioned before, in Windows 8 there were four layouts: the snap view, fill view, portraits, and full view. So when it comes to portraits, how are you going to define, or how are you going to decide that the device is in the portrait form and how you're going to react to that. So how you can do that is use width and height properties, the size width and the size height property, to define whether you want to give the portrait layout or not. So if the width is less than the height, essentially that means that the application is in the, or the device is in the portrait form, and that's when you want to give the portrait layout. And same thing in CSS. At the you can use the orientation as the portrait and then go ahead and leverage that. So that's what we mean. Windows 8 applications at any size, any screens, to ensure that the physical, to ensure that you're giving a well-crafted, a great experience on any screens, regardless of the pixel density of the screen. And how you're going to do that? Here's an example. Operating system scales the application for you across the whole form factor. Right. Now how you can do that? Here's a thing on the screen right now, which is showing on the first row there's a 100% 1366 768 pixel screen, and on the right hand side, on the first row right hand side, there is the same application running on 1920 and 1080 pixel. So at this point of time, you can see that the application has shrunken a little bit, and it's now become not so user friendly because the button and the text are smaller. The button is smaller, and since touch should cater to all kind of fingers, and when you're touching something, it should have enough area to be touched appropriately and react to it. This is not a very good user experience. However, if, like you can see on the bottom row, on the left hand side, the same application running on 1366 and 768 pixel, and the same application which is running on 1920 and 1080 pixel at 140%. Now the only difference between these two is the quality. The left hand side, the 1366 768, is not that clear and not a very high DPI, and on the right hand side it is much more clearer and much more nicer. So how you actually do that is that same thing. Many things are same in Windows 8.1. The scaling plateau remains 100%, 140%, and 180%. So all you have got to do is define assets for all of these three scaling plateaus, and then operating system will pick up the appropriate asset from your application and display it according to what is the resolution of the device. The Windows height is always 786 pixel or greater, so that shouldn't be a problem. So see, right now what you have got to do is to leverage all of these scaling plateaus, provide images for all of these scaling plateaus, 100%, 140%, and 180%. On the screen we have shown you suggested naming conventions that you can choose. So yes. Now, create apps in any sizes on any screen. Guys, we are going to end up with this now. So definitely do this. Design for 500 pixel width and up. Provide assets for all three scale factors in resource package, and test at key sizes in Visual Studio Windows Simulator. Or you can leverage App Labs for this. You can send them their code and have them test it across all the devices. Now you can consider doing this according to the kind of application that you have, the kind of content that you're showing. You can think about supporting down to 320 pixel wide and adapt layout at other sizes, portrait window size. Alright, leverage the power of multitasking and awesome new screens by delivering a beautiful app experience at any Windows size on any screen. Perfect. Process lifetime management. Guys, gear up, as this portion of the talk we are going to I've designed this talk in the sense that we'll take a brief look at process lifetime management in the following content. So starting now, remember how Windows 7 application runs and who runs them? So it's basically the users, you and I, right? If you have the memory of Windows 7 applications, you start the application and you close the application by clicking on the cross mark, the red cross mark. But in Windows 8, the system manages the life cycle of the application. It's no longer user who's in charge. Well, of course, user is in charge if he's actually closing the application himself. But basically, Windows 8 is responsible for it. Let's see why. Let me introduce something called the suspend mode here. So what happens is, if you open an application in Windows 8, and you open another application in Windows 8 and another application in Windows 8, and you keep on opening application in Windows 8, at one time you can see only one application, correct? Or you can split the screen and go ahead and see maximum of 4 applications. So basically, you at one time, if you're using just one application, you're not sharing a lot of resources, right? All the resources, all the CPU cycles and every resource, memory and all is given to one application which is running. And rest all other applications are in suspended mode. Suspended mode applications do not have any impact on resources or the battery life. So hold on to that thought while I walk you through the application lifetime process. See, if you have opened first application and then you go on opening to the second application, your first application is suspended for a short delay. Then you keep on opening n number of applications and all the n-1 applications are in the suspend mode. What if you want to, what if you've opened so many applications that there's a memory crunch? At this point of time, system terminates your applications, the first application, without notifying you. So this is how system controls the life cycle of the application. Perfect. And if you resume the remaining application, they will get back as normal without any consequences. They will resume and perfectly work. So introducing suspend, what we basically I have like told you, system resources focus on the application that the user is interacting in the foreground, and inactive apps have no impact on the battery life. And suspend. So suspend under the hood. Let's look at this. So suspended apps are not scheduled by the anti-kernel. No CPU, disk or the network is consumed. All threads are suspended. Apps remain in the memory. Kernel ensures apps are not suspended in the critical section, and so it doesn't cause a deadlock. And app instantly resumes from suspend when brought back to foreground. So friends, this was the suspend mode. Now I'm telling you the system kills the suspended application or terminates the suspended application without giving a notification. Now, is that the only way to terminate an application? Absolutely not. Here are few other ways, which is system needs more memory, which is when system kills an application, or when the user closes the application, which is the dragging down the application from top to bottom. When the system shut down, absolutely when system shut down, your application will be terminated, and when app crashes. Well, we should never go to the fourth point, which is the app crashes. We should all develop application which does not crash. So here are 4 ways applications are terminated in Windows 8. How you can make your application look and feel fresh. Here are few scenarios on the screen and what you should do in these scenarios. So user is using your application. At this point of time, you can save your data incrementally so that you can get back to him. You can get user back to the same page as he was if the app was suspended in between. App switched away from. Save where the user is and what screen they're on. Suppose you are reading a newspaper article and you have opened a mail application and the newspaper application goes into the suspend mode. At this point of time, what would you like? Would you like when the user resumes that he should get back to the same page article that he was reading, or you should land him on the hub page from where he'll have to search his article again and go where he was reading? Well, the better user experience is the first thing that I said, if you land user back to the first page. So this is what is scenario number 2. Not running app launched by the user. Bring the user back and restore their session as if they never left, which is self-explanatory. And suspended app launched by the user. Resume. Well, in that case, you don't have to do anything. So this is the process state transaction about the running app. If the app is running and it gets to suspended app for suspended state, you can resume the app. And if because of so many apps are open and there's a memory crunch, system will terminate the app. let's go and look at the splash screen. I'm very sure that all of you all know what splash screens are, knowing that you're attending this session on Windows 8, which is the second session of the 4-session series that Microsoft Technical Evangelists are taking. If you have attended the previous session and this session and are planning to attend the next 2 sessions, I'm pretty sure you are a fan of Windows and you must know what splash screen is. Well, splash screen is the first thing user encounters when they open your application. A lot of branding and beautiful layout is given to splash screen because that's the first thing they look, first thing which can give them an idea about what the app is going to be about. So you have to provide splash screen so that all the background work which needs to be taken, all the initialization of the resources which needs to be done happens in the background while user is in the splash screen and enjoying the branding element. So basically you are providing splash screen mechanisms to provide a consistent transition to your app. When Windows launches your application, that's the first time when user sees the splash screen. And you have to provide the color and the image of the application's splash screen into the app manifest file. Now, point to be noted here is app need to present a window within 15 seconds of activation of the app, otherwise it will be terminated. There's another concept called extended splash screen. There are some applications, like let's just say bulky enterprise applications or something like that, which need a longer time to load. So what do? You make your first view of your application same as the splash screens. So what happens is splash screen is there, and when the splash screen is gone, the first view of your application is there, and if they both look similar, user will not feel that it is still loading. He will feel a proper fluid transition from the splash screen to the main screen. For that, you can use the app splash screen API, which renders the splash screen manually. But you know what? We don't really recommend this approach, because we don't want user to keep on waiting for data to load no matter how complex the application is, because basically he is not in your app to see the splash screen. He's there to read some content or consume some information. So it's very good idea to always have splash screen for a shorter period of time and land user to the main page where he can take advantage of the knowledge. Now I told you about applications, that if you open one application and then you open another application, the first application goes into the suspend mode and no resources are given to this application. Now what if you want to have like an application which is downloading a movie, or you have an application which is playing a music? And like I said, there is no resource provided to application once they are not in the foreground. So does that mean that if you're downloading a movie, you have to constantly keep that downloading applications on the foreground for as long as it takes to download the movie? Nah, that's a really bad user experience. So there's something called as the background tasks. Background tasks run. These are the application that runs while not in the foreground, and they can run by using the different APIs which are present. Here, let's say you have an audio playback application which can play audio in the background. You must certain things that you need to do about that is you have to specify background audio in the app manifest file in your Visual Studio project. And then here's an info that each audio stream is given a type, whether you have a communication type or a media type or a game type. At one given time, only one audio stream type may play at a given time. Obviously, if you are, if you have a headset on and you have a music playing, and you have a communication sort of an application going on in the background, and you still have that headset on, it will be a noise, right? You are hearing music and you're trying to have a communication at the same time with the same or input of audio and the mic. That's not going to be a very good experience. So at one time, one audio stream type may play as a background. You can implement background task API. You can look through the background transfer API to find out what methods you need to use in order to accomplish your task. You can use this API to upload or to actually download data over HTTP in the background. So all you got to do is get an application in the foreground, develop it in such a way that it still runs while not in the foreground, and continue even though your app is suspended. So like I said, this is what is all about the background task. Briefly, I'm trying to inform you a little bit about it to, sort of give you a brief idea about what all you can do. Probably we can have some other sessions later on, or somebody else can have a detailed session about them if you really, really are very interested in all these terms. But for now, briefly, we have understood what splash screen and importance of them are. We've understood that Windows 8, in Windows 8 and 8.1 system controls the life cycle of your application. And we have seen this thing, background tasks. Now let's move forward and understand the RTC application, which is real-time communication applications. What are RTC applications? Well, if you have noticed, there are certain applications which give you information in the real time. Like as soon as you open up your Windows 8 or 8.1 laptop or desktop, in the start screen itself, you can see the lock screen applications, right? Lock screen applications, if you have pinned down certain applications, they'll give you the data, the notification or information upfront, like how many messages you have received, how much battery is there, if your laptop is receiving a Wi-Fi or not, how many mails have you received. So basically, what happens for the real-time communication application are, first thing, they have some code which runs periodically, or they have they run certain piece of code in reaction to certain events which are happening. We'll see about it in like a little later, but let's see diagrammatically how these run. So running application have background task execution, then you move ahead and have another background task execution when the app is suspended, which is another event, and then finally when there's low in the memory, again when the system is low in memory, again the piece of code runs in the background forms. This is what the life cycle. This is what is the life cycle of a RTC application, which is little different than the normal life cycle of an application, because in normal application there are no background task execution according to the state of the application, but in RTC there is. So like I said, lock screen application is the RTC application where app can run in the background, which is designed for a real-time communication of the application. The code has to either run periodically, or it runs in response to system events, like when user logs in. Let's say you log into your device, and suddenly you log into your device and a piece of code runs and fetches all the information about the applications that are displayed in the lock screen and gives you the data. How cool would that be, right? So yeah, so that's what I mean, that it's in response to certain system events. On the screen at one time you can have 7 different lock screen applications. So choose whichever application you want to be shown. Now this is the last title of today's session. Using live tiles appear always running. Right. So live tiles are the key component of the start screen. Tiles are colorful tiles are basically representation of your application on the start screen. They can be of two type. These tiles can be of two type. They can be either of the type static or of the type live. If your tile is of the type static, you can basically show a particular kind of information and stick to it. Like you can show an image of your application and that's all. But if your tile is live, then probably what you're doing is feeding few notifications into the tile of your application and sort of inviting user back to your application. If the application implements live tiles, basically what happens is the app appears to be running. App appears to the user as something which is continuously running, and the user can get a relevant information without opening the application. So sort of your app engages with the user even before the user has opened the application. So this is the benefit of using live tiles. So the thing is, I'll give you an example over here. I know we don't have much time left. In fact, it's almost 6. But bear with me, this is the last title, so I really want to give you this example. So my colleague has a small daughter, like really, really small daughter, and she was working on her Surface device, which is Microsoft's tablet, which runs on Windows 8 and 8.1. So when she was working on her Surface device, her tiles were flipping, and her tiles were showing contents and they were appearing as something which is moving on the screen. Guess what the small child did? Her first instinct as a baby who doesn't know anything about content or tiles or windows or how these works, her first instinct as a human was to touch the thing which was flipping or which was moving or which was showing something else. So as a human, I think we are all invited back to a thing. We are all curious to go to a thing which is moving or which is showing us an example of being alive. So this was just an example to tell you that live tiles can really work wonders in your application if you choose to implement it. There are two mechanisms available to update the tiles on the start screen. You can either have a local tile update or a push notification. But before getting into all of this, you have to understand that the notification or the tile update that you're doing should be really relevant to the user. Like you have to make sure, you have to decide on two things. First is what data are you going to show on the tile, and second is in how many frequency you would want to, in how much frequency you would want to do that. Just 1 second. Yes, in how much frequency you would want to do that. So let's say you have an application like what do you call it? Social application, Facebook or Twitter types. You would want to update this application or update the live tile every 15 minutes. If you have a weather kind of application, you would want to update it every 2 hours. If you have a news application, you would want to update that kind of application, or you want to put notifications in the live tile like few times a day. If you have a deal sort of an application which is showing you latest deals, probably it will be once a day. If you have magazines applications which are updating every fortnight, that can be about like 2 times a month. Something like that, so 2 times a week or 1 time a week or 2 times 4 times a month or something like that. So choose wisely what kind of information you want to put in the live tile, choose how much time you want to update it, and after this decision is taken, try to decide on what mechanism you're going to follow. Local tile update is nothing but fetching information from your old tile and displaying it into the from your own application and displaying it into the tile. Push notification is basically a third-party developer hosted on cloud. They push the notification on your application. Choose which is suitable for your application in terms of what you want to show, and leverage all of this live tile. So here's a recap. We've learned about Windows' new philosophy on how and when your application runs. Apps are suspended and eventually terminated in the background. Keep your app alive, fresh by saving and restoring, properly reacting to the scenarios in which the user is, whether he's suspending the application or resuming the application, and use of live tiles and splash screens. This is it. Now we have come to the end of the session. Let me remind you again, if you have not started developing Windows 8 applications or 8.1 applications, please look into this aka.ms/winit templates website. Check out our 75 design reference template and jumpstart your development. This will be really useful. I myself have done it. It's really awesome. Just go ahead and take a look at it. And also let me remind you again about Windows Store App Labs, which is an entity set up only for developers like you who are Windows 8 developers and 8.1 developers, 24/7, not exactly 24/7, but throughout the time as your application development is going on, these App Lab people are there to support you. Any kind of design query, technical query, quality query, verifying your application, testing of your application in terms of technical feasibility and testing your application or different form factors, please do feel free without hesitation to write at w8pitcrew@microsoft.com. Leverage it. They will get back to you with an answer no matter what question you ask. Even if you have some kind of a problem or some kind of decision-taking problem in terms of what idea you have to pick up for Windows 8, play with them, play with the ideas, write to them, take their opinion if you want to. Leverage all of these two resources, which is Microsoft's investment for all the developers like you who develop on Windows 8. Go ahead and start your journey if you haven't till now. Before ending, let me mention about appbuildersclub.com, which is nothing but a website which will talk about the running challenges which Microsoft is posing, challenges having for developers. If you have some time, go ahead and take part in these challenges and win exciting prizes. Right now there are 2 challenges which are already taking place. You can go ahead and take a look at that and join from next time onwards. Prizes can include all-in-one PC certification vouchers and the shopping vouchers. So this is appbuildersclub.com. Take a look at that. Furthermore, here on the screen you can see the resources which are there. Let me, just hold on to it while you go through it by your own self. These resources will be really, really useful for you while in your journey of app development, which talks about what opportunities does Windows platform offer to app builders. How can I learn modern user experience UX design? These all questions are answered. I'm hoping that you have understood a little bit about how you can leverage the different layout or different screens and the multitasking model of Windows 8 and 8.1. If you feel that makes sense, you should implement it in your application for a better user experience. If you think that it doesn't, then but at least you should implement 500 pixel layout so that user can have user can use your application in multitasking view, which is one of the very good feature of Windows 8 I feel. And with the kind of devices which is coming up, it only makes sense that we have application which responds to all these kind of layouts. Now I think you all must have written. So with that, I thank you all for joining the session. Really, I look forward to great apps from some of you guys, all of you guys actually. And thank you so much for taking time and attending and showing interest with the Windows 8 app development. I hope you have learned something in this.
Thank you, Samiksha, for that really detailed presentation. However, as we are already running out of time and questions are still pouring in, would you want to take a bunch of questions, or because we have around 20 or 25 odd questions? I'm not sure
Yeah,
if
I can see the
address
questions.
all of them. So maybe if you could pick 4 questions out of the ones which I have assigned to you and answer those 4 questions. I hope you can view the questions.
So yes, I can view the questions, and since there are 55 attendees here already, let me try to take 4 questions or more if there's time. Let's see. Here's a question by Vivek Joshi. He's saying, oh, he's left.
You can still answer that question. You never know, it might be useful for others who are already there.
Okay. All right. So here's a question. He says, hello ma'am, I'm totally new to Windows application development. Well, I'm working on Android application these days. Great presentation, first of all. Thank you so much. My query is on what technology these apps are developed, like Android is programmed using Java. Okay, Vivek, although you have left, here's hoping that others will leverage this information. Windows 8 application and Windows 8.1 application are developed on the tool called Visual Studio. If you are developing Windows 8.1 application, first thing that you have to get is Windows 8.1 operating system. You cannot develop Windows 8 or 8.1 application on Windows 7 platform. You cannot develop 8.1 application on Windows 8. So let's talk about Windows 8.1. If you want to develop or developing Windows 8.1 application, first thing first, get Windows 8.1 operating system, and second thing second, get Visual Studio 2013. And if you have these two, you're all set to develop a Windows 8 application. Let's talk about the programming language that you can use. We've tried to open up. We have tried to make it a really, really open platform for applications so that all kind of developer can develop Windows 8.8 applications. So if you are a Java programmer or if you are HTML programmer, you can take a combination of JavaScript and HTML for developing. You can use C# and XAML. XAML is XAML, which is nothing but a similar language to HTML, which is used to design the UI. So C# and XAML is another choice for you. Third choice is you can use C++ and XAML. You can use F#, well not, but C++, XAML, C#, XAML, JavaScript, HTML. This is what are the programming languages which are available. And let me remind you again, if you're developing Windows 8.1 application, you need Windows 8.1 operating system and Visual Studio 2013. If you want to develop Windows 8 application, however, I would recommend not to, because any which way in future everybody is going to convert into 8.1. So it only makes sense to develop 8.1. But if you want to develop Windows 8 application, get Windows 8 operating system and Visual Studio 2012. Here's a piece of information. You can run Visual Studio 2012 in Windows 8.1 and develop Windows 8 application, but not allowed vice versa. Here's second question. Who's this? A new beginner, fresh start. He's also left, but here's a question. I do not understand fully concept of window size. Could you explain it again? What is a snap view, and is it mandatory to implement? What happens if screen width is lower than 500 pixel? What would be app width in that case? Okay, let's take one question at a time because it's a bunch of questions. Do not fully understand the concept of window size. So if you have used Windows 8 or 8.1 before, try to open 3-4 applications together and try to run 2 applications together at one time on the screen. What you would do is you will split the screen and have the 2 applications running side by side on the screen. If you remember the photo that I showed you, which had 3 or 4 applications running together, well, that's called window size, that screen size basically. The screen is split into different sizes. So this is the concept of sizes, that when you're trying to run 2 or 3 applications together, the screen size is split and then you try to run them. Could you explain it again? I've done that. What is snap view and is it mandatory to implement? Snap view means when you are trying to run your application in 320 pixel screen size, and no, it is not mandatory to implement it. What happens if screen width is lower than 500 pixel? Like I told you, if it is lower than 500 pixel, it'll be 400 pixel or it'll be 320 pixel or anything between them. Well, in Windows 8, let's talk about Windows 8. In Windows 8, you cannot have a 500 pixel. You can either have a 320 pixel snap view or the remaining part of the screen as a fill view. Okay, and in this case, if your size is less than 500, it has to be a snap view, which is 320 pixel. And in Windows 8 application, and in Windows 8.1 application, any size lower than 500 pixel is allowed, because what you're doing is basically, like I showed you, if you remember the XAML code or the C# code like I showed you, or the property e.size.width, you set it as e.size of width less than 500 and then you define the layout of the screen. So anything which is less than 500 will be easily scaled down, and the experience will be easy and natural for the user, not disruptive. He says, what would be an app width in that case? It depends, no? When you're trying to lessen the screen size, it depends on the user in case of 8.1, where how much he drags and stops. So it depends on the user, how much he's dragging, and that defines the screen size.
Samiksha,
here's a question that Siddharth has asked. He's asking,
yeah, Samiksha, how many questions would you?
I would love to answer all the questions.
Yeah, but the only problem is the session will expire because as I earlier stated that we have this 1 hour period, and I think they give some extension for 15 or 20 minutes. I'm not certain, so I don't want the session to end abruptly. So you have taken around 4 questions already. So how about you take one last question and we can wrap up the session, and we will request the attendees to share their questions with us offline.
Yes. So let me take this last question, and people who are popping in with questions, and if you want more answers, you can put the questions in TechGeek forums, and I will try to go there and answer them for you. Here's the last question. He says, can you explain a little bit more about XAML, because I'm really new. I'm a new Windows developer. Can you tell me more about XAML? So XAML is basically a design language developed by Microsoft Corporation itself. It's a very simple concept. It's like tags which are defined. You have everything in the form of tags, and just go through, open a Visual Studio project, and you'll see that it's very similar to HTML. You use XAML to basically design your application, and you use the logic language as C# or C++ on the backside. And these two together, the XAML which is defined the UI and C++ or C# which is defined the logic, together this works as one entity. There are a lot of tutorials available. Write down these two email addresses I am saying, msjn.microsoft.com. Go there and try to find out tutorials for XAML. I'm pretty sure you'll find lots of them. Or go to channel9.microsoft.com. These two are the links I would like to suggest. So I think I've taken one last question. Thank you so much TechGeek for having this session. Thank you so much all the attendees for attending this session. Like I said, this is the second in the series of 4. There are 2 more TechGeek webinars taken by Microsoft Technical Evangelists lined up. Do look forward to them. Thank you so much again, and I wish you all a very good evening.
Thank you so much, Samiksha, for taking at least some questions. And as I have already mentioned, request all the attendees to share your queries by coming on techgeek.com and posting the questions on our discussion forum. Samiksha, you can also, as you clearly stated, you can also log in and view those questions and post your answers on our discussion forum as well. This is one way through which you can send in the queries. Another way you can send in is directly writing to us, and we will be immediately sharing the questions with our experts. The recording of today's session will also be available on techgeek.com by tomorrow afternoon. So those who came in late or probably want to go through some of the slides all over again, please log in and visit techgeek.com and go through the entire recording tomorrow afternoon sometime. Thanks, Samiksha, once again for taking time out today, and we look forward to having 2 more webinars in the next 2 weeks. Thank you so much, everyone.